Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Have you checked the children?
I want to play a game. The box. You opened it. We came.
Here.
This is the All-American Spookshow.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the All-American Spookshow podcast. I'm Josh. I'm joined here with Professor Smoak.
What's up?
Will and Donnie are on assignment this week, unfortunately. So you just got the two of us this week, but
You have to cope.
yeah. But we're kind of kicking off the spooky season, so to speak, here this week with Smoak's Choice, and of course, he kicks it off with The Witch from 2015. So, what better way to kind of get us in that October frame of mind than with with an old folktale-ish type of witch movie, right?
Yep. One that I saw at the theater 3 times when it came out.
I did not get to see this in the theater, but I remember like renting it or something. I don't know exactly. I don't remember how I watched it, but it was like right after it came out. But we'll get into that as far as the release of this movie and everything a little bit later on. But trust me when I say it wasn't long after this movie was in the theaters that you could buy it. It was only a matter of time later. So it was probably late 2016 or so, give or take, when I watched it. But we'll get into that, what our star ratings are and what our thoughts and everything on it. And of course, like I said, Will and Donnie aren't here, but we'll get their words, their ratings, hopefully next week for the second annual Spook Show Awards. So, which is what we're going to be heading into starting the month of October with, is the second annual Spook Show Awards. So hopefully they'll be there next week for that, and we'll get their thoughts and their ratings and everything, because unlike when we did the Fly episode where we actually kind of pre-recorded Donnie's segment, we weren't able to do that this time around. So you'll just have to wait another week at least for their thoughts. But before we get into the background information and all the usual bits, you can contact us at allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at AA Spookshow, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Slasher app. You should be able to easily find us by searching for All American Spook Show or AA Spook Show. Or you can just go down to the Linktree link down in the show notes. Pretty much all that stuff is right there, including our YouTube channel, where recently we just started the new series, Grindhouse Gutter. That one has been a pretty good success so far, so I think we're going to keep that one going. And hopefully here pretty soon we're going to be introducing some other new cool stuff over there on the channel, so you want to stay tuned for that. And we also moved the Spook Show Rewinds over there too. We've got another one coming very soon to the YouTube channel, so we encourage you to go to the Linktree link down in the show notes, find that YouTube link, and go subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to be notified whenever we upload videos or when we do random live streams for stuff. Of course, we want you to go over to the TeePublic page, which is also down in the show notes, where we have logoed merchandise. We've actually put up a couple new designs. We now have available the new AA Spook Show logo for t-shirts and mugs and whatever the hell else they put it on, face masks, all that stuff over there. And we also just put up the Grindhouse Gutter logo for shirts, mugs, same deal. So those are the two latest designs over there on our TeePublic page, so we encourage you to go do that. And of course, the main event, other than the podcast itself, is our Patreon, patreon.com/AA Spookshow, where every month we have a new episode of Crapsterpiece Theater, which the latest episode just came out this past Friday, Manos, The Hands of Fate. So if you want to hear our thoughts or our lamentations, however you want to phrase it, on Manos, you need to become a patron. I think it's at least at the $5 level over on patreon.com/AA Spookshow. So you can give that Crapsterpiece Theater, which was the 7th edition of that, and plus the 6 other ones prior to that are all in the archives there. Plus all of the Library of the Professor video minisodes are over there. I think we're literally up to, just a couple weeks ago, we released number 69. So there's tons of those. tons of those on there, and a bunch of other cool stuff. Plus, you get early access to the podcast episodes, all that. So we encourage you to go over to patreon.com/AA Spookshow. So without any further build up, we'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for The Witch.
What went we out into this wilderness to find? Leaving our country, kindred, our fathers' houses. For what? For the kingdom of God. Let us pray.
You've cursed this family.
Who's there?
Oh God, my Lord, I now begin. Oh, help me and don't leave my sin. For I repentant now shall be. From evil I will turn to thee. None ever shall destroy my faith. For I repentant now shall be. Oh God, my Lord, I now begin. Oh, help me and don't leave my sin. For I repentant now shall be. From evil I will turn to thee.
Let us leave the wood.
All right, there you go. That's the trailer for The Witch. So I guess before we get into the background, like, so you said you saw this in the theater 3 times when it came out. So I assume that means you just loved it from the word go, right?
Yeah, like I had heard about this well before it came out, so I was anticipating it. It's Robert Eggers' debut feature-length film. So, not knowing who he was, I just had read about this movie, that it was a folk-related tale that kind of doesn't necessarily have anything to do with The Wicker Man, but it kind of reminded me of that feel when it was described when I was reading about it and whatever. So, and I love that movie. So any sort of movie that's that folk-oriented tale of whether it be witchcraft or whatever, anything that's like comes from a folk tale that's done authentically, it's definitely got my attention. So when I saw started reading about it, then the trailer came out, and yeah, I was definitely stoked for it. So saw it the first time, and I think it was it might have been AMC, and then the second time saw it in like a more independent theater, which was cool because there was a lot of people there. It was funny because the first time I saw it in the theater, the regular theater, once you get to the end, even though it's an A24 film and it's pretty much straightforward, when you get to the end, it's not as crazy maybe as a twist and things as some A24 movies have, but it's still a sort of a what the fuck kind of thing for some people, I guess. So when I saw it in AMC theater, a lot of people were like, as soon as that part happened in the credits roll, they're like, what the hell? What's that?
Yeah.
And when I saw it in that indie theater, it was, it was more people, the atmosphere there, the people expected it, independent cinema. So, the crowd there was more accepting of the ending, I guess, Yeah. So, and then I saw it the third time somewhere, I don't remember, probably AMC again.
Plus, too, with a movie like this, and we'll get into it shortly, but like the fact that they're speaking in the old English, right? I'm sure that doesn't help the matter of people just understanding what's going on. So maybe they miss some of because of the lingo, right? Because the way they're talking, maybe they miss a few key plot points along the way if you're not 100% paying attention to what's going on, right?
Yeah, because Robert Eggers wanted to do it as authentically as possible, so he used actual vernacular of the time in New England. So yeah, it's going to have that. Now, for some people, this is a problem. I'm used to like reading Poe and well, you read Shakespeare, you read Poe, you read H.P. Lovecraft. This older, not that Lovecraft is as old as that, but still, there. If you read some older stuff from like 1800s to early 1900s, the English was a little different, so you'll pick up on that and stuff. So I had no problems at all with it, but I know a lot of people did have that complaint that that they didn't understand some of the vernacular.
Yeah,
some of the
to put it a simple way, it kind of reads like the Bible. It's like a lot of these, a lot of thous, a lot of would's, that kind of, just the old way of speaking. Because this movie takes place, I think I saw somewhere, it's like supposed to be like in the 1630s or so when this movie takes place. So, you're getting that Puritan type of way of talking and everything, right?
Yeah, they're still British. They themselves had come over from Britain, the actors in the movie. I mean, not the actors, but the roles they're playing in the movie, they had just recently come over to the colonies, I guess. If they were even colonies at the time, I forget what they were exactly called, necessarily. They weren't, of course, they weren't states yet.
Yeah, obviously. I'm not sure if they were colonies yet at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was, we're talking about like early on, 1600s.
Yeah, this is really early. So, yeah, this is first generation everything as far as America is concerned. So, yeah, I'm not sure if they were.
So most of the British, were, the actors themselves were too, with the exception of some of them, but. So they speak. Not only were they speaking in an older dialect of English, but they also have older, this British accents as well. So yeah, for some people, I've remember when the DVD came out, they would put the subtitles on. English subtitles for English.
But getting back to the point, though, I could see where that might be confusing for some people along the way. Like if you're not, if you don't follow not the language, but you know what I mean, like the way they're talking, the dialect. And you're not 100% paying attention to everything that's going on. I could see at the end of this being like, huh, what the, like.
Yeah. It's definitely a movie. It's like one of those movies where you got to pay attention to it. It's not one where you can
just put it on the background.
Maybe you're tired in the theater and you dozed off for like a couple minutes or so and you woke up and you're like, what the fuck is going on now?
Yeah, like when I fell asleep during like Expendables 2 or 3 or something like that. And somehow I was sleeping through all the explosions, but I still knew. I woke up like however long later, I still knew what the fuck was going on, like it's the Expendables. Yeah. This one, this is when you got to pay attention.
True. And if you're in your house messing around, you could be messing around on your phone. If you're watching, like I said, something like Expendables or Missing in Action or whatever, well, maybe not Missing in Action. I've seen that 1,000 times. I could like not even watch it. And the dialogue's going on. But, a movie like an Expendables, one you've only seen once or twice, and you could, not really pay attention to it that well and still know what's going on by hearing.
You can put the pieces together. Yeah, this is definitely one, like we said, you need to pay attention to. And, we'll get into the ins and outs of our thoughts here in just a minute. But I'll go ahead and go through some of the background information that I pulled out. So this movie is also known as, without being funny, the Vivitch. But it's the witch, right? But it's just spelt with 2 V's instead of a W because that was like the old way of spelling things, right?
Yeah, that was, again, Robert Eggers staying as true to possible to the time period because they didn't really write W's. If they had something with a W in it, it was written like DV.
2 V's, yeah.
So they connected it to make the W or whatever. I don't know why. I don't know. That was apparently the way it was in the 1600s when they were writing.
I just always figured like however they printed it, right? Because obviously they didn't have necessarily typewriters, but the way they would print a book or something, they didn't have the letter W made. So it was like, well, we got these 2 V's. This will work, I just saw, even when I was younger and I would see that old printing like that, I'd be like, oh, that's weird. They didn't have a W, but it's 2 V's. I've seen it before.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's known as The Witch, a New England Folktale. And when you watch the movie, that's in the title card, right? I think it does say The Witch, a New England Folktale. Yeah.
I don't recall if I got the DVD of it or the Blu-ray, or whatever. I don't recall if it's actually part of the title on the packaging, but I know it's definitely on the screen when it comes up.
Yeah, it's on the title screen in the movie. I don't think it's on the Blu-ray. On the packaging of it, I think it's just The Witch. But it debuted January 23rd, 2015 at Sundance Film Festival. Played at various other festivals. Finally got snatched up for distribution, and it released wide February here in the U.S. and I assume in other markets around the world. February 19th, 2016. So that's over a full year later from its debut at Sundance to the time that it, finally got a wide release here in the U.S. So I'm sure to what you were talking about earlier about how you had heard about it, this is probably why. I'm sure it got a lot of buzz in the festival circuit, and that's where a lot of the hype came in. And it worked because for a movie that had a budget of $4 million, it went on to a worldwide gross of $40.4 million. So that's pretty good, for this type of flick, right?
Oh, yeah. And that's even with, like we said, it's an A24 film, and it was kind of marketed. This is one of the criticisms I've heard people talk about it. It was the promotional material and the trailer and everything definitely pushes hard into the horror.
Yeah.
But it's really not. I mean, it definitely has those darker elements because you're dealing with the witch folklore and everything, but it's not. It is more of a, like I said, a folk tale, which, a lot of good folk tales have horror or that type of element to it. But it's not straight horror. So that, I think, turned off some people when they saw it. They were expecting it to be, well, I don't know what they were expecting, to be a full-on witch, Halloween witch horror movie with gore and stuff. I don't know what they were expecting from it, but they were expecting more horror, I guess, from the trailer and stuff. Sometimes A24, when it comes to those, when they used to anyways, when it came to that type of thing, would push whatever the subgenre it was falling into was. But A24 films, as anybody knows now, are really kind of undefinable genre-wise for the most part. They kind of cross over all kind of different genres. So
Yeah.
I guess they necessarily themselves don't know how to promote the trailer.
Yeah.
To show it not just being a crazy conglomeration of everything's thrown on the screen at once. So it ends up coming out looking this one like more of a straightforward horror film when it's not.
To that point on IMDb, it's listed as a drama/fantasy/horror in that order. So that's probably more appropriate as to what, kind of the subject matter of the movie is to list it kind of in that order, right? I mean, there are definitely, like you said, horror elements, but it's not a full-on horror in that sense. But
yeah, it's not. It's like dread, like a sense of dread that builds throughout various scenes and tension and stuff.
It's mood.
Yeah,
and everything.
There's blood stuff here and there, but not straightforward gore and not straightforward terror, like sustained terror, I guess.
Yeah, it's more of just a sense of foreboding and, like you said, dread throughout the movie. Like you just feel like something bad is going to happen, and until something does happen, kind of thing.
Yep. And I think it has to do with a lot of elements. The soundtrack, and I wish I can't. I don't have his name. I don't know who did the soundtrack right now on top of my head, but the soundtrack's amazing to this movie as far as it, again, building that tension and dread and it was also, that was another element of seeing it in the theater that was great because it really sounded good in the theater. And of course the cinematography, and he wanted to shoot everything with mostly natural light, as much natural light as he could get. He shot it that way. And I think cinematography and music and everything going together and the editing and the actors' performances definitely boost this movie up.
Yeah, the film score was written by Mark Corvin.
Okay.
And he apparently he used some instruments of the time, kind of, and some other kind of weird instruments, including the nickel harpa and the water phone. But yeah, so this movie was the production companies strap up for this because it's about 18 production companies. Parts and Labor, RT Features, Rook's Nest Entertainment, Maiden Voyage Pictures, Mott Street Pictures, Code Red Pictures, Scythia Films, Pulse Films, Special Projects. Okay, yeah, the last one was just Special Projects. And then, of course, it was distributed here in the United States by A24. Rated R, of course. Total runtime of 1 hour and 32. It was filmed in Kiosk, Ontario, Canada. Which apparently I saw where Eggers wanted to film it in the New England area, but I guess tax breaks and whatnot were just so much better in Canada, so we had to go up there.
Yeah, at the time, I don't know now. Now I don't even know if that's the case anymore. It used to be you get a lot of tax breaks in Canada, but I remember hearing something about they don't go over there to shoot like they used to because now it's ended up being more expensive.
Yeah,
for some reason. But yeah, I know it took them a while to scout out that area that had the same type of trees and landscape that was in New England that he was wanting to have. So finally found that, and I forget what that town, what that city or whatever it was, or rural area of Canada was. But
Kiosk, Ontario, Canada. And apparently it was very rural too, like the middle of bumfuck Egypt. Basically, is where he had to film this thing. The box office snapshot for that particular weekend. These are always interesting. So this is for the weekend of February 19th through the 21st, 2016, when this movie opened wide. And it did open to a little over 2,000 theaters. So, I mean, it did get a legit wide release for sure. But number 10 that week, Hail Caesar. Number 9, The Revenant. Number 8, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So that juggernaut was still on the board when this came out. Number 7, Zoolander 2. Number 6, in its opening weekend, Race. Number 5, How to Be Single. Number 4, in its opening weekend, The Witch. It made $8.8 million in its opening weekend. But number 3, also in its opening weekend, slightly above it, was Risen. Number 2, Kung Fu Panda 3. And then number 1 at the box office for the second straight week, Deadpool, the first one. And of course, it was raking in. There was like I just read there was at least 3 massive movies, 4 if you count Kung Fu Panda 3, but Deadpool, Star Wars Episode 7, and The Revenant, were raking it in at that time. So there was some stiff competition, even though it was in the middle of February. But it did get a Blu-ray/digital HD release on May 17th, 2016. So it was only 3 months after it came out wide in theaters that it was out on Blu-ray. And then it eventually got a 4K UHD Blu-ray that came out April 23rd of 2019. Do you have the 4K?
No, I just had the Blu-ray.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see. Yeah, I would like to see the picture on the 4K.
Yeah, me too. We'll be probably getting it at some point soon.
Yeah,
do get a lot of 4Ks. I just don't have that one yet.
Now that I know it exists, I'll go run out and get it. Yeah. It was like we've mentioned before. It was directed and written by Robert Eggers. This was his feature film debut, and really he's only had 2 other feature-length films though, right? Since then, The Lighthouse and The Northman, and The Northman just came out earlier this year. Yeah.
Yep. And I know that there was a Nosferatu remake out there mentioned at one time before, maybe even before The Lighthouse. But that, for whatever reason, that fell through at some point. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Like I said, anybody who's watched our favorite remakes episode on YouTube will know that Werner Herzog's remake of Nosferatu is up there for me in like the top, maybe my 3rd favorite remake. I forget what I had listed as. But like I said, that being said, I still wouldn't mind seeing Robert Eggers' version of what he could do with it.
Now, he did have 3 other short films before The Witch. Hansel and Gretel in 2007, The Telltale Heart in 2008, and then a short called Brothers, and came out the same year as The Witch, 2015. I haven't seen any of those, and I have not seen The Lighthouse, but I did go see The Northman in theaters, and that was awesome. So I've heard a lot of good things about The Lighthouse, just for whatever reason. You know how it is. Just haven't sat down and watched it. I don't know why, but maybe I'll have to change that.
Definitely good. I recommend it for sure. It's we saw that one in the theater once. I only saw that one once in the theater, but I think we saw The Northman 3 times as well.
Yeah, yeah, that was good. That was good. It's weird in the sense of like, once again, it's another one of those you really have to pay attention to what's going on, and that one's even worse than this as far as like the language barrier kind of thing, right? Because a lot of that movie they're speaking in Viking, whatever language it is in that movie, right?
Yeah, I guess the Old Norse at the time would have been. Yeah. Lighthouse goes without saying as well too. That one's another one. I don't think Robert Eggers knows would even have any interest in making a straightforward film that's just like a popcorn movie.
Now, yeah, at this point, I'd like to see that. Like, you know what, dude? Just make a normal movie. Let's see how it looks. Like not normal, but you know what I mean. Like something of a current time period that's kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, cliche. Just a regular old genre movie. Let's just see you do that, because that would be interesting. Just because this dude is, he's so good at doing like these period pieces like this. These things that, hone in on a certain time. I mean, he nails it. He knows how to do that for sure. We've seen that.
Attention to detail is like phenomenal that he has. I mean,
yeah, and that's another thing that we'll get into about this one here in just a minute. But the movie stars Anya Taylor-Joy as Thomasin. This was her film debut. She also went on to be in Split, Glass, The New Mutants, Last Night in Soho. That was just last year, and of course The Northman, which you'll see a little bit of a connecting thread here in just a second. Ralph Ineson as William. He played in The Green Knight, From Hell. He was in a handful of episodes of Game of Thrones, and he was in The Northman. Kate Dickie as Catherine. That's the mom. She was in Prometheus, The Green Knight, handful of episodes of Game of Thrones, and The Northman.
And also, for those who haven't seen The Lighthouse and wondered, well, he uses a lot of these same actors in The Witch, and he's using them in The Northman. Why didn't he use them in Lighthouse? And that's only because there's only 2 actors in The Lighthouse.
Yeah. I know that much about the movie. That's a limited cast. The only one really worth mentioning here is Harvey Scrimshaw as Caleb. He's the, I don't know, what would you say? He's about 12 years old, I guess, give or take in this, his role. Boy of the family. He was also in another movie after this called The Devil Outside, but still pretty limited because he's young. So he's only been in like 5 or 6 projects. But yeah, to your point about like, as far as like just nailing every aspect of the time period in this movie, like they really went out of their way in this one for that. Like as far as like the costumes and everything, and they even like designed them not only the way they would have been, but they used some of the same materials and everything. They really consulted a lot of like experts on 17th century British agriculture. They wanted to get down the way they spoke and everything, because that would have been of the time period, right? This is a family that would have moved from England in that time, so they wanted to make sure they were speaking the way they would have spoke, wearing the same clothes they would have, all the way down to the way they set up the house and their little farm or whatever there. Like they went to lengths to make sure that it would have been set up exactly the way it would have been at that time, and they even brought in a thatcher and a carpenter from Virginia and Massachusetts to properly build this thing in the style of that period. So Eggers really went out of his way here to make sure this thing was as, spot on as possible.
And it definitely paid off. For that. Especially considering the budget. To do all this stuff not on a Hollywood budget.
Yeah, just $4 million. For a movie, that's not a lot.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
Yeah, for me and you, $4 million, that we'll never make that in our life. But for a movie, that's not a lot.
Yeah, and I know they saved money on, like I said, the natural lighting. He wanted to shoot, I guess, in the day that when he had sun, and shoot all this stuff without having like a bunch of different artificial spots and cans and things hitting people at different. He didn't want it to look stagey. He wanted it to look as natural as possible.
Yeah, like outdoor is like natural light. The only lighting inside the house was candles. So yeah, like it's as natural as it's possibly going to get. I'm sure I would imagine they probably backed that up a little bit with some lights just to make sure, they could see what the fuck was going on. But still, supposedly this is the way they did it. So, and like
it definitely did look stagey. You've seen those movies, and I love them. Like let's say, just for instance, like Hammer movies, Gothic period setting type movies. But you got that stagey lighting where it's coming, like spots and cans and everything hitting, like
somebody's walking across with a lantern or a candle, but yet you can clearly see there's a spotlight on them that's moving with them. Yeah. It's definitely not like that in this. They did a good job of it. However they got around it.
While I'm thinking about it now, talking about the cinematography and the lighting. Just the scenes when they're traveling and when they get kicked out of the village, right? And they're on their way to wherever they're going to find to set up to build a house on and everything. Those scenes, it's like that scene when they stop and they're out in the woods, right? It's sort of a foreboding type scene in and of itself. There's nothing at all scary about it necessarily, but you definitely, just the way he shot it, you get the feeling of them being there by themselves in this wilderness, basically.
Yeah.
Because, you got see the horse and buggy right there, and then you see everything's lit by the campfire that they built because they stopped, I guess, to to sleep or to build a fire for warmth and for cooking food or whatever. But it's just very much, I don't even know how to explain. You've seen those types of scenes before in movies where a period setting and people stop to camp or whatever. But you just get that sense of them being out here on their own, nothing else is around them, whatever, and all you see is their little fire lighting their little space right there. It definitely opens it up to like. Some shit's going to happen later that's just going to be eerie or whatever.
Yeah.
It's refreshment time, and our refreshment stand is loaded with good things to eat. There's crispy, crunchy popcorn, and hot, delicious buttered popcorn. Lots of candy, and frosty, refreshing cold drinks. Why not treat yourself at the Refreshment Center now?
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I flopped on over to Audible, and I typed in The Witch to see what would pop up. And of course, some books about witches popped up. The Witch, A History of Fear from Ancient Times to the Present by Ronald Hutton. That one is almost 16 and a half hours long there on Audible. Witch, A Tale of Terror, and that's an Audible exclusive by Charles McKay and Sam Harris. That one's just a little over 3 hours long. And then we have A Secret History of Witches by Louisa Morgan. That one is a little over 17 and a half hours long. So there's tons. Trust me, you go and type in The Witch on Audible. There's an ass load of witch things. Like, I think only so many pages will pop up and it maxed out. Like, I've got over 60 pages on Audible of witch-related things, so you can imagine. So, what better at the spooky season than to hop on over to Audible and download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook, so you can really get into the October mood. I know we're not there quite yet, but you can really get in the mood with all these witch books over on Audible.
Oh, yeah.
What we do here lately is I've been hopping over to IMDb and I just look at the plot summaries that they put up. And for this one, we've got 4 different ones. You've got the simple one-sentence one. A family in 1630s New England is torn apart by the forces of witchcraft, black magic, and possession. That pretty much sums it up, but let's go a little deeper. New England, 1630. William and Catherine try to lead a devout Christian life, homesteading on the edge of an impassable wilderness with 5 children. When their newborn son mysteriously vanishes and their crops fail, the family begins to turn on one another. The Witch is a chilling portrait of a family unraveling within their own sins, leaving them prey for an inconceivable evil. One more that's really long. In the 17th century in New England, the farmer William and his family are banished from the Puritan plantation controlled by the church due to differences in religion principle. William leaves the spot with his wife Catherine, his teenage daughter Thomason, his son Caleb, and the twins Mercy and Jonas, and settles at the edge of a forest. They build a small house and a barn, and meanwhile Catherine delivers the baby Samuel. One day, Thomason is playing with Samuel near the forest, and the baby mysteriously vanishes. The family unsuccessfully seeks Sam out, and Catherine becomes insane, praying all the time and mistreating and blaming her daughter for everything wrong in their lives. However, William goes to the forest to hunt since the crop has failed. Early in the morning, Caleb, Thomason, their dog, and the family horse go to hunt in the woods. However, Thomason falls from the horse and faints, and Caleb becomes lost in the woods. William finds Thomason, and Catherine confronts her about Caleb's fate. Is this the beginning of the tragic end of their family? And that was posted by Claudio Carvola. And just one more, since, there's only one more left. Banished from the bosom of their righteous pilgrim community. What a way to put it. The troubled patriarch, William, and his Puritan family set out a humble farmhouse on the outskirts of a thick and dark forest in mid-17th century New England. As the struggling family tries to settle in their new isolated homestead, before long disaster will strike when their infant child vanishes into thin air, and, shortly after, other unforeseen and grievous calamities smite the God-fearing farmers. However, is this grave situation the result of a family on the brink of a psychological breakdown? Or is William's firstborn daughter, Thomason, the root of all evil? And that was posted by Nick Reganis on IMDb. So, yeah, that pretty much, all those, you slap all those together and you pretty much get the plot of the movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, where do you start here? I mean, I guess you start right from the beginning when, they're kind of cast out of this village, right? This, what would that be? Kind of not a town necessarily, but it's like a settlement or something that they're...
Or settlement?
Yeah,
maybe.
like that.
Probably a settlement. I guess it would be a settlement because, like I said, I haven't checked into 1630 if they were called colonies or not, but I don't think so. I think they were settlement's probably the word.
Either way, this was, they're kind of now they never really got to the root, or maybe I just missed it once again. Kind of reading between the lines of the language, the way they speak in this movie. But did they ever really specify exactly why they just kind of got booted out? Other than just religious differences, was there something specific there?
I didn't hear anything specific other than I think it was just his, the thing is too, that's kind of ironic about it is a lot of people came over here from Europe to
religious freedom
to do what they wanted to do, the way they wanted to do it. And, seems like, I guess he wanted to do it even more differently than the people who were in this village were doing. So I guess he had, even though they don't specify anything, I guess he had run-ins with the clergy there or whoever, or as far as him doing things his way.
That's what I wonder, whether they were more hardcore.
Yeah, I think they
or
were
were they not hardcore enough? That was my question, really, I guess.
I think they were more hardcore as far as taking things more literally and doing things more by the Bible, as opposed to the village.
Yeah, okay. I got you.
Being kicked out of.
So
Well, actually, I don't know. Technically, they weren't kicked out of it. He was stubborn and hard-headed enough to say, well, I don't want to be here with you imbeciles. I mean, he didn't put it that way. But
Yeah.
I don't want you non-God-fearing imbeciles or what. Like I said, I'm just
However he
paraphrasing.
phrased it, yeah. So they just took off and left. Then like it said in the plot summaries there, they go and kind of set up their own little farm, and then they have a baby, and then Thomason is out there. She's the main girl of the movie. She's out there with the baby playing peekaboo, and it's like peekaboo, and then she uncovers her eyes, and the baby giggles, and then they do this 2 or 3 times, and then she uncovers her eyes, and the baby is gone. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, gone. Like, not a trace. You don't see the trees move or anything. It's just poof, baby's gone.
And she's in the field, right? But then she's at the tree line, not too far from the tree line, and she looks up, and it's weird. And that's another great way that he shot that is like you don't necessarily see anything, but you get the feeling that she maybe caught a glimpse of something.
Yeah.
Or the tree branches moved or something. You get the feeling that, that something came in, took the baby, and went into the woods with it.
But you don't see a clear track. You don't even see a clear anything. You just figure something came out of there and grabbed that baby and, took off. But you don't see anything. There's not a whoosh or a blur or anything. It's just peekaboo, opens her hands, and then bam, baby's gone. I liked a little bit later on when the twins, they're just kind of annoying twin, little, how old would they be? 6, 7, 8 years old, just annoying little kids, and, they're fucking with that goat, the Black Phillip, who, becomes a bigger figure later on, but they're fucking with that goat to the point where he's all pissed and just, like, man, you don't know what you're fucking with, man.
Yeah, and they're, and them being twins, they have their own, little communication things too with each other or whatever. So they're
which gets
with the goat,
which gets
whispering in the goat's ears and
weirder and weirder as the movie goes along, right?
Yeah,
but we talked about it before how well they just nailed that time period though, like, or at least what I imagine. Now, granted, I wasn't alive, right? So who the fuck knows? But what we all imagine and what history suggests is the way things would have been in this time period. They really nailed it in this movie, no doubt.
Oh yeah. And like I said, pretty quickly things escalate from the time of them getting kicked out, them being on the road, and that time I think I mentioned about them stopping in the campfire, and you get this foreboding sort of atmosphere or whatever. And then they get to the spot where they're like, okay, this is it. Boom, this is where we're going to build our place. Then they cut to the scene where they whatever amount of time's gone by, they've already built the cottage and a work shed and all this stuff, and then boom, then she's out there playing with the baby. Bam, the baby's gone. I mean, it's all pretty quick. I didn't really look at the time.
I want to say that happens within the first 10 minutes. All of that.
Yeah.
Like first 10 minutes. So yeah, you get a sense of dread and everything pretty much right from the get-go. But definitely like that scene with the baby, that's what sets you up for.
Yeah.
There's some fuckery going on here. Like something ain't right.
And he's not wasting any time to get to it either.
No, like I said, I want to say it might even have been less than 10 minutes in, all that stuff. Yeah, a little bit later on when Caleb they go hunting, like we alluded to in the plot summary there, and then she gets knocked off a horse and knocked out or passes out or whatever happened to her. Caleb just kind of keeps going and finds the witch's hut or whatever out in the forest. And then whatever happens with the witch, Caleb's missing, but then he eventually turns back up butt naked, like, out in the middle of the night. He comes in and I guess he's just, whatever happened with him and the witch, he is sick and suffers for like, a day or two. And then that whole scene where he dies though, that was pretty fucked up.
That was intense too I'm sure for him shooting that scene. I'm sure it didn't. And I think I read that Robert Eggers didn't direct that scene. Somebody else directed it. And I don't remember the reasoning why that was. A second unit director, whatever the case may be. That scene of him, with that intense scene of the possession or whatever you want to call it, and leading up to. By the way, we're the spoiler filled podcast thing here. Leading up to. If you don't want to, at this point, we're really going to be spoiling it.
Yeah, we should. That's a good call. Yeah. We should have said that. We are a spoiler filled podcast, so if you have not seen this movie, you might want to pump the brakes, hit pause, go watch the movie, and come back because we're about to give it away. But go ahead.
So yeah, before leading up to his death, I mean that was an intense scene right there, and just and everything after that, everything just escalates. Oh, well, also, I guess we need to go backtrack a little bit to after the baby got stolen. You don't see it right there. You know, like I said, she's looking down and boom, and then baby's gone and she's looking toward the tree line. But then I think shortly after that, the camera goes into the trees, into the witch's cabin or the witch's hut, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty messed up scene because you have the babies there. And if you know anything about folklore of witchcraft from Europe to American, the whole, Puritan witchcraft and Salem witches and all that stuff, babies are, unfortunately, they part of the folklore, they use the babies' parts and stuff to make flying ointment. In other words, so they don't, of course, show the aftermath. So the baby's there, the witch is like, you kind of barely see her, but you can tell she's haggard and everything, right? And then the next scene is she's got this pile of blood and parts and stuff, and she's like rubbing it on her and rubbing it on the broomstick and all that stuff. And you, of course, like I said, some people were, I think, confused at that part because if you don't know anything about witch folklore, you might, well, what happened to the baby? Where's the baby? Because I mean, they don't. Of course, they're not going to show what happened to it, but that's the baby basically got torn up and used as as witch's ointment and stuff like that and whatnot. So that scene's pretty messed up. And I said it's not necessarily brutal because you're cutting from the scene of the baby being alive and there, and then all of a sudden you're cutting to the scene of this bloody mass that she's
Yeah, I think you see her grab like some shears or a knife or something. She grabs some tool, but you don't see her do anything to the baby. But you put two and two together that this is what this is what happened. But fast forward back to this part with Caleb. Whatever happened to him, it's like he gag. There's a part in there where he gags on something. He kind of hacks it up, and it's like a ball. Like at first, it's almost.
I thought it was an apple because they're talking about apples. They were talking about going into the woods to search for apples, even though apples were more of a. I don't know if it was more of an England thing from England that they had. I don't know. I can't remember now. There was something about they missed apples from back in England, and so they were always talking about. I think Caleb mentioned something about an apple, like he thought he saw an apple on the ground or he saw something, but the apple plays a role in the movie, and I don't know if it's necessarily has anything to do with like at the Garden of Eden per se, symbolism or something along those, and the devil and whatnot.
Probably. I mean, there's a lot of religious symbolism in this movie, so it wouldn't be far fetched to go down that road, right?
That's what I would think. I mean, it was an apple. I thought when it came out of his mouth, well, it's coming up, and then he like
I couldn't. That makes total sense now that you say that, but I couldn't quite tell whether it was like a little ball of like something wrapped up, like sage or something wrapped up. I mean, at first it almost looked like a fucking eyeball coming out of his mouth, but you don't really get time to study it, and they never say what it is. So I guess it could be anything really. But you're probably right there, that you point that out. That makes as much sense as anything. But he does that, and then he just lays back down, and it's almost like he's praying, but it's almost like really like it's like he's seeing Jesus or something, like right before his death, right?
Rapture, like he's got the rapture. Right as he's dying, and then he goes because he's like, he's literally in a rapture or whatever, and then he lays back down.
I feel the warmth, and then just lays back and that
was a scene because also we didn't mention that Thomason is being accused by her mom of being a witch because the twins, she was messing around with them earlier, saying that she's the witch of the woods. I be the witch of the woods and all this, and I'm gonna curse you and everything. So she was messing with the twins. So now they're like saying, "Well, Thomason's the witch." And
and that gives you a taste of how it was in those days, as far as like how easy it was to accuse someone. Like all you needed to do is, well, I don't like that motherfucker. Fuck him, he's a witch. Hey, and now they're burning you, because some dude didn't like you. And
definitely. And this was I think I read too that this was about 62 years or so before the Salem witch trial.
Yeah.
So you had, everybody during that time period believed in witches. In other words, if somebody were to say this old lady down here who lives by herself and she does this stuff with herbs and she does, she's a witch. So people believed that she was a supernatural witch. She could fly around on brooms and would kidnap babies and do all that stuff. So it was very easy for them later on to start accusing people that weren't, that weren't witches, of course, that were just like, they might have messed around with herbs and knew this or that ingredient to help with this remedy or that remedy or whatever. but a lot of times it was something else, some other reason why it was jealousy or something was going on where they would just
just easily.
Yeah,
I just love how illogical it all is, because it's just like, hey, that woman's a witch. Oh yeah, well the only way for us to find out is to burn her, and if she doesn't die, then she's a witch. Then she's a witch. If she dies, well, egg on my face. It's so illogical.
You're supposed to throw in the water, and if she floats, no, that was Monty Python.
Yeah. I love the premise though of if they were accused and all right, we're gonna burn her. If if she lives, then she's a witch. What was their plan then? Like, what if somebody actually said, "Fuck you," blah, and they're a witch? Like, you can't burn them. What are they all gonna do then? Like, oh shit, we just unearthed a real witch.
The other thing was the torture too. Like, I don't know, like you torture somebody, and they're going to confess to all kind of stuff. I mean, just to keep from being tortured again. So I mean, that.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to get a lot of confessions of people saying, "Yeah, I'm a witch. I just don't want you to, don't pull my fingernails out anymore."
Yeah, just stop. I did it. Who cares? Like most people would do anything to get out of it. Yeah. I'm a witch. Ha, we got you, fool. Shit. And then they burn you. The whole thing is just so illogical. But I guess that's just the way of the times. They didn't think things through that way.
Over there in Europe, like Spanish Inquisition, and that also reminds me. I think I sent some pictures to you on the chat and everything. And I wasn't sure if Eggers was influenced by Francisco de Goya's artwork, but it turns out I was watching some interview and he used the word Goya-esque ending talking about the movie. I'm like, oh, okay, so yes, then.
So yes, he was
very much
inspired.
had meanings in mind when he made this movie, or before he made it, when he wrote the movie or whatever.
So
but yeah, anybody who's out there watching or listening to this, and you've never heard of Francisco de Goya, go check out his Witches Sabbath paintings, and you'll see the correlation in mood and tone and everything of those paintings. And this movie.
So a little bit later on, the mom is just insane with grief because now she's lost her newborn. Now she has lost her son. She thinks her oldest daughter, is a witch, and they basically lock them up in a barn. By them, I mean like the twins, because now they've been playing along with this thought that Thomason is a witch, right? They've really been pumping it up and acting like she's a witch and kind of going into a fake trance and everything.
Yeah. Acting like they've been bewitched by her.
Yeah. So like the parents are just like, fuck this, and lock them all in a barn. Like literally like nail them shut in a barn. So she has like a fever dream or whatever the hell she has, the mom, inside the house while this is happening. And she believes that she sees her two sons. And she picks up the baby you must be hungry, to feed him or whatever. And then it pulls back and there's just a fucking crow sitting there like eating her breast. You watch that and you're like, what the hell, man? And then apparently, I guess she just goes back to bed happy after that, because then like it's the next morning and she wakes up and you can see the blood on her pajamas or whatever.
Yep. So that so he definitely is saying that it's a supernatural thing, but that's going on. I'm guessing then. But also, I've read that he's dropped some hints here and there of something where you could reason out what this was, that it may not have been supernatural. But he's not saying that it's not. But I've seen the movie 4 times. Well, more than that now. I guess 5, maybe even 6 times. And the only we haven't gotten this part yet, but while I'm thinking about it, the only part that I was thinking of that could be seen as not being supernatural is when Thomason passes out after her scene with the mom. She goes into the barn and she kind of like puts her head down and the camera goes to black. And the next thing is she's lifting up, and then Black Phillip in his demonic devil form or whatever is going through that whole spiel about signing the book and everything. So that, was she? And I know we haven't gotten to that part yet.
Well, I mean, we're about to get there, so I mean, we'll kind of get there in just a second. But so the kids, the twins and Thomason, they're locked in the barn. They see the witch is in the barn, right? Like whatever she's doing with the goat. There's like a regular white goat in there or something. I don't know what the hell she's doing with the goat. But then
part of the folklore too is, well, I think she landed on the roof from her.
I guess
she had a broomstick.
She came in there somehow, right?
On the roof, and came down into there. And parts of the witch folklore is that they curse the milk from cows and goats and things so that it'll give blood and not milk. Because there's a scene earlier where it gave blood.
Yeah, when
Thomas
she was milking the goat and there was blood in the bucket.
So there's some of that in there where the witch curses the livestock so that it won't be fruitful.
That was pretty funny though. The witch turns around and
yeah,
it's the very typical. Yeah. But now that's the thing though. Like they don't show you here what happened there. I assume that she must have took the twins and just tore that place apart. Because when they all wake up the next morning, like the barn looks like a tornado hit it, and Thomason is just laying there in the middle of it, and the twins are gone.
Yeah, and then the goat or the cattle, I think, are dead, right, laying around, except for one.
For Black Phillip, he's running around, and that's what happens next. But what exactly are you led to believe happens there? Because they never address the twins again, because it all kind of goes to shit almost instantly at that point. So
that's true. Yeah. I guess that now I don't know as far as now the witch folklore, like how old that children would need to be for them to do what they supposedly needed to do for making their flying ointment and all that stuff. So I don't know if you're led to believe that she took them back to her hut and did whatever, whether she, did what the witch and Hansel and Gretel did and ate them. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you have to be led to believe that the witch took them, because otherwise what happened there, right? What if the witch didn't, then where the fuck did they go?
Yeah.
I seriously doubt Eggers would have left that big of a plot hole. They just ran away into the woods. We're never going to address that again. So there had to have been some element there where you're basically right after that. Maybe Thomason gets knocked out. She grabs the twins and just, blows a hole through the side of the barn and takes off with them, right? I assume. But just as soon as basically Thomason gets up because her dad comes out, to take the morning piss or whatever, the morning constitution, and then Black Phillip runs up and just knocks the living, like gores him basically, right? Just knocks the living fuck out of him.
Yeah, his head butts him right in the ribs, like full on. And that, by the way, it catches you off guard just watching it on your big screen TV or whatever. But in the theater, especially the first time, it's like, what the? Ah. I mean, you feel that because it's a goat. You're seeing him. He kind of looks up at the sky, which is kind of odd at first. Like, what is he looking? Did he see a witch? Did he see her? Yeah. He looks up at the sky, and then right then is when bam, he gets hit right in the ribs.
Yeah, and he's instantly like yakking up blood. So I mean, it pretty much put the death blow on him right there. But then it backed up and nailed him one more time. And he
right into the wood pile.
Yeah, he says something. I don't remember what he said. And then the thing just knocked the shit out of him and like right into the wood pile. So he's dead. Or at least you can pretty much gather he's dead, right? And then
there's also that point where he picked up a weapon of some kind, a blade, axe.
Yeah, I was about to say I think it might have been the axe that was there with the wood pile.
But then I don't know if he just kind of at that point. See, there's some again Robert Eggers and his writing and everything too, and like leaving things open to interpretation. It's almost like I wonder if he just gave up at that point. He's like, what do I even have to live for now?
Yeah,
just do it. Just basically, because he had the axe. He could have like waited for him to come in and then swung, hit him with the axe or whatever when he went in to headbutt him again or something. But it's like he just gave up at that point. He's like, put the axe down. And I forget too, like you said, he said something.
I don't remember what he said, but he says something and then it just nails him again. And that's the end of him. But knowing what you're about to find out with Black Phillip, it may not have mattered if he brained him with an axe, right? Like,
true. Yeah.
Because apparently he's something else. And what is that something else? I don't know. I think he just turned into Captain Jack Sparrow for a second there. That's what I think. But so Tom, but
the Spurs and everything.
Yeah. But basically, the mom comes out and accuses Thomason of all this and attacks her, and then Thomason has to put her down, right? Like she stabs her or something. What is that? Like a spade or?
I think it's a garden trowel or some kind of
something like that.
Some sort of garden bladed instrument.
She has to kill her mom. So basically, Thomason is like, her whole family's gone now, either gone or dead. You don't really know what happened to the twins, but I think it's safe to assume they're gone and dead. So yeah, her entire family is gone at this point. So I think she just kind of gives in to the madness.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier, where she goes into the barn right there after she killed her mom.
Yeah, she takes I guess her dress off, but she's still got the
over part, outer part, whatever.
Yeah.
She's got on
Then
lining.
just puts a blanket around her and just sits at the table and falls asleep until nighttime, right?
Yeah.
Then she wakes back up because she hears some kind of racket, some kind of chimes or something like that. Goes back out to the barn and just decides to talk to Black Phillip. And I think she's about like she basically beckons Black Phillip to say something to her, right? Can you really speak or something like that?
And then he doesn't, of course, at first. So it's like
until right before she turns around to leave, and then that's when he speaks.
Yeah.
Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? And a few other things. It's a creepy scene because I think you don't really see anything happen there. You know what I mean? Like, you're not looking at a talking goat. You know, they didn't get too corny with it. Like, you're not seeing a goat with his lips moving or anything like that. You don't see that.
And you didn't see in like other witch folklore. And also, we haven't mentioned this yet. And I think you've seen this movie. You've seen Hot Sun before, right?
Yeah.
The Swedish silent film. That movie's all about, I mean, it's almost semi-documentary style of like witch folklore at the time. And I also recommend anybody who hasn't seen that movie, hell, you can almost watch that and then watch this back to back, and that'll give you some background. If you're not up on your witch folklore, watch Hot Sun, then watch this one, or vice versa, whatever. But he could have went the route of like the witch kissing his ass, because that was. You remember that scene?
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of witch folklore that apparently the witches, to show their loyalty to the devil would bend over and the witch would kiss his ass, basically. So, at least he didn't go that route because that would just be too corny. It wasn't meant to be corny back in the day. It was meant to be a very terrifying thing. There's a devil and the witches showing their loyalty by kissing his ass or whatever. But it wouldn't really work, and it worked for Hot Sun, but it wouldn't work for this movie.
Now's as good a time as any to mention that way back in episode 98 earlier this year was when we did that 100 Years of Horror, where we did talk at length a little bit about Haxon and all the other movies that, horror movies that came out in 1922 because it was 100 years ago this year. So if you want to listen to that little deeper dive on that and some other movies, including Nosferatu, go back in the archives at episode 98 for that. That was a good one. But yeah, so like she's talking, like I said, you don't see the goat talk, but it talks back to her. And then there's just a dude, like I said, for lack of a better comparison, it's almost like a swashbuckler or Captain Jack Sparrow kind of looking dude, which I think you're only left to assume is Satan himself, right? Kind of walks up behind her and kind of offers the life, so to speak. Like,
sign the book.
Yeah. See this book in front of you? Sign it. I don't think I can do that or something. And then he says, like, I will guide thy hand or something like that.
Yeah, she couldn't write her name.
She couldn't bring herself to do it, whatever the scenario was. But then you cut to her butt naked. I think he tells her to take her clothes off, right?
Yeah.
Remove your shift or whatever he says.
Yeah.
And then remove thy shift. And then, like, the next thing you see is her walking butt naked out to the woods. She goes out to the woods, and there's a
clearing.
Yeah, there's like a coven of witches out there, like, dancing around a big fire, and she just walks up to it and I guess kind of like accepts, like, well, I'm part of this now. And then, this is after they all start floating in the air, and then and then she just kind of starts floating in the air and smiling, like, I guess she's in now. And then I think that was it, right? Credits. So
yeah, it was kind of like a close-up shot of her, and you kind of see that you can tell that she's levitating up, but it's a close-up shot. And then when she gets to wherever the point is that they want to be, then the camera goes wide, and she's like floating at the top of the pine tree there.
Yeah. What'd you think of the ending? I mean, like, what were your takeaways as far as like what you thought? Do you think the movie achieved what it set out to do? And what do you think about the ending?
Yeah, I definitely think it, like, as I was saying before, it being true to witchcraft folklore, and also the Goya paintings I mentioned, that whole floating thing too, that again very much reminded me of, and that's where I heard the interview with Eggers, where he actually referenced Goya was in that floating scene at the end and everything. And I think it definitely achieved that ambience or atmosphere. So I thought it was a perfect ending, just because even though a lot of people, like I said, watching an AMC theater thought, what the fuck's that? What the hell's going on here? I thought it was perfect for this movie. I don't know how she could have ended it to get that atmosphere.
To be fair, you are left with a few questions here, like what happened to the twins? What exactly is she getting into? What the hell is that? I mean, I think anybody that's paying attention can figure out, well, it's a coven of witches. but they don't come right out and say that, you know. So there are questions here that, like you said, if you're not really bathed in the folklore, so to speak, you might be like, what, you know? So I could see that.
Also, people have read into this a feminist aspect to it because of her, you know, well, the Coven of Witches and female empowerment and everything at the end. And I know Eggers himself said that he didn't write it that way. He didn't intentionally shoot it or write it that way. But I guess he's fine with it. People interpreting it that way, which, I mean, you could interpret it like that because first of all, another thing is a familial. The drama aspect, like we said, the genres are drama, fantasy, and horror. And the drama aspect stems a lot from the family dynamic and how it falls apart. Not just from the witchcraft angle. What first it is, because I mean the baby gets stolen, kidnapped, or whatever. But then things happen, like, and you can blame it on the witch, maybe the curse or whatever, that she's in the area and it's just her curse. But you know, crops and not being able to hunt or not being able to find any animals to hunt and things. I mean, just stuff starts happening. Terrible, you know, not just the baby, but survival stuff. Just them not being able to get what they need, and then the whole thing of the cup, right? Or the wife's cup that her father had given her before, or you know, an ancestral heirloom, and to where the husband had sold it off, but yet he's almost like he didn't want the wife to know that he did it, so he was going to let the daughter take the blame for it because she had mentioned she tried to cover for her dad or whatever. And so there's this whole family dynamic of like stuff falling apart on top of the crap with the witch going on, you know. So
yeah, plus there's that thing of like clearly like that under kind of sub story, so to speak, of like her kind of coming of age and clearly wanting her own independence and her own thought and everything like that, right? So like she's in a very religious family, and then in the end, when they all go away, she basically trades one religion for another. You know, like there's a lot of symbolism and allegory, you know, going on here. There's a lot in this movie, you know. So I think that's not only lends for a good conversation when we're talking about movies like this, but this is proof of a good movie when you can sit and really debate and discuss things about, you know, what you've just seen instead of like, well, this guy died and, oh, that was a cool, gory scene. The end, you know, moving on to the next one, you know, so there's more here. There's more meat on the bone with a movie like this.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can definitely appreciate that, right?
Yeah. You can definitely tell that, you know, this being his first movie, that he was going places after that, even though he's like one of those auteurs though, where it's like, he's going to take his time to do this movie or that movie. It's not going to be like he's going to put out 10 movies in 3 years or something like.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could definitely tell with this movie being his first one that I was eagerly anticipating his next movie, and I thought it was going to be Nosferatu because that was announced, and then it ended up being a Lighthouse. And you're like, you see that movie? I know you haven't seen it yet, but when you do, you're like, damn, this, and yet again, nails the period that he's going for, the time period, and the vernacular of sailors and things of that nature, you know. And then again with the Northman. So I'm eagerly anticipating the next film he's going to be putting out.
Yeah, whatever comes next, I'm sure we'll all be on board for it. That's for sure. Or at least you and I will. You know, it remains to be seen how Donnie and Will feel about it. We'll see. But with that being said, I guess we'll go ahead and get to the star rating. So, what do you think?
Oh God, this is probably the 5th time I've seen it now. I'm kind of going back and forth on the half and quarter stars part of it, and I mean it's very
give out 5.5.
Yeah, like 5.5.
Yeah, we can't go over 5. That's the only.
And I'm also trying to gauge things of like how much do I like this one versus his other 2 movies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And first I'll say that I'll say the order I like them in best: The Northman, The Witch, The Lighthouse. Now that doesn't mean that they're that far apart. That's just one edges the other out just a little bit here or there. Now the Northman's going to edge it out because of my deep interest in the subject matter.
Yeah, it's more in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, and this one is 2 to a certain degree. I'm going to have to go with I go in 4 3/4 stars. Love it.
Yeah, that's a big one. I'm not going to go quite that high, but I'm still going to give it a solid 4 1/4. I think that's more than fair with my scale. And, you know, that's just, once again, like how we do this. You know, you do kind of naturally compare to other movies that we've watched. So, you know, with that in consideration, I'll stay at 4 1/4. But, yeah, this is a great movie. This is, I want to say it's probably the 3rd time I've watched it. And, I mean, it's just so well done. It's not necessarily, for me, something I'm going to watch all the time. But, like, a once every year or 2 kind of movie, yeah, this is that kind of flick, you know, for me.
Yeah, because like I said, I'd seen it 3 times, fairly close to session in the theater. since then, it's been spaced out for. Now, this is the first time I've seen it in a while, probably a couple years, anyways.
Yeah.
So the first 3 times were all right together, and I've seen it probably maybe 3 times since. But like I said, it's been spaced out for years apart.
We'll see what Will and Donnie have to say about it, and it'll be interesting, of course, as it always is, especially when it's a movie that you and I probably going to lean more towards than they will. But we'll see. That being said, just between us, you got about a 4.5. I think the critics and the usual aggregates kind of agree with where we went with it. On IMDb, it's got 6.9 out of 10 stars, but the Metascore is 83. That's out of 100. Rotten Tomatoes, once again, tomato meter, certified fresh, 90%. But surprisingly, I guess a little bit, the audience score is only 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's kind of surprising. But I think for the most part, they agree with what we had to say about it. This is the rare exception where I think the critics, we kind of agree more with the critics than we do the audience. It's usually kind of the other way around with a lot of the movies we watch,
Definitely when it comes to like the exploitation type movies.
yeah, exactly. They're going to be like, this is like half a star. What the hell is this? But meanwhile, we're like, oh, this is awesome. 4 stars,
Bronx Warriors only gets half a star. What the fuck?
Yeah. Case in point, street trash,
Yeah.
All right, so as we've said, Will and Donnie can't be here to give out the kill count and the crypt connections, but Smoak, I'll leave it up to you.
Gore score.
Well, yeah, as we've been discussing, this is not we talked about the horror element being played up more in the trailer when it came out than it actually is in the movie. It's got that sense of dread and everything, and it's got a little bit of violence, of gore. Well, a little bit, but
well, literally, William, the dad, gets gored. So there.
Yeah. He spits up blood, and then you got the mom getting killed with the planting tool of some sort, the bladed, whatever that is, and then you had the raven in the dream sequence eating the mom's breast.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty.
Yeah.
It was actually. You see a little bit of it. You actually, again, that's one of those scenes that you feel more than you.
Yeah, when it pulls back and there's a crow like munching on her breast. Like, oh fuck.
Then you have the son who, I guess he's spitting up some blood or whatever when he's going through his whole, right before his death and everything, and the apple coming out of his mouth and all that. Then you have the baby. That was pretty terrible. Even though, like we said, you don't see direct violence there. Of course, you don't want to see that.
You still know what happened.
But yeah, you got the aftermath. You get the witch rubbing the gore, so to speak, on her broomstick and all that stuff. So that's pretty horrific. And but overall, like I said, it's not meant to be a gory type horror movie or anything. So I think I'll go with 6. I think that's good because, like I said, it's not a lot, but what is there is fairly disturbing or whatever. Especially the crow, the baby, and the Black Phillip getting it. That's more of a out of nowhere like thing that kind of jump scare almost to get you at first when he gores the father.
Well, there you go. I think that's a good way to start off, like not necessarily the month of October, but just the whole Halloween spooky season. It's a good way to start with The Witch. But next week, we really kick it off in earnest. We always call October kind of our Super Bowl, so to speak, our WrestleMania season, if you will. Next Monday, October 3rd, with the 2nd annual Spookshow Awards. We've got tons of spookies to hand out. Basically, it's based on our time period from a little bit before October of last year. So it goes all the way back to basically the movies that are eligible are episode 74 all the way up to episode 127, which was the one that we, this episode. So The Witch is included in that criteria. That's kind of where it ends. So we have all kinds of categories, including like the best of cult corner, cannon fodder, crapster piece, best and worst. We call those the what is it? The worst is the burnt turd, and then the best is the golden bomber. We'll have categories for best movie during Camp Spook Show, our best older reviewed horror film, best newer review horror film, tons of categories. And, of course, we hand out our Spook Show Scream King and Scream Queen awards as well. So you don't want to miss that. That's next week, right here on the channel, or right here on the the podcast feed. It'll also be posted up on YouTube and all the other places. And if you're a member or a patron of the Spook Show over at patreon.com/AASpookshow, you will get it early. So lots of stuff. You got that to look forward to. And then, of course, we got all kinds of cool stuff planned for the month of October. A lot of things we haven't even completely revealed yet. Some of that stuff will be revealed next week. So trust me, lots to look forward to coming up in the month of October, leading up to our 4th anniversary show on Halloween. I guess that's it for this one. So for Will and Donnie, who couldn't be with us, of course, Professor Smoak, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.